Okay, hi everybody. It's 2:40, so it's time for the fabulous Norton Book Buzz. I'm Golda Rademacher. I'm the Library Sales and Marketing Director for Norton. I'm joined today by our Midwest sales rep, Dave Malman. And we are thrilled to be celebrating our 100th anniversary this year and proud to still be independent and employee-owned. So we're going to present both adult and kids books today. So there's 2 handouts spread around, and there's some on the table back there. We'll talk about adults first for about 15 minutes, and then we'll switch over to the books for kids. So this is exciting. We just announced a new Michael Lewis book a few weeks ago. In Going Infinite, Michael Lewis tells the story of Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX's spectacular collapse. He really dives deep into the story, and Michael has been able to do hours of interviews with Bankman-Fried because he's on house arrest. So you can expect to see Michael Lewis on 60 Minutes at the beginning of October, and there will be a lot of other interviews and profiles around the time of publication. This is Michael Lewis going back to his financial writing roots and tackling the hot topic of cryptocurrency. So I think you will have a lot of demand for this. Emily Wilson received so much praise for her translation of the Odyssey, published in 2017, and now she's tackling the Iliad. The editor said, if the Odyssey is a journey, the Iliad is an action movie. In Wilson's hands, the thrilling, magical, and often horrifying tale now gallops at a pace befitting its legendary battle scenes. Wilson's unadorned language examines the poem's profound pathos and reveals its characters as real, complicated human beings. Capping a decade of intense engagement with Homer's poetry, Wilson's Iliad now gives us a complete Homer for our generation. And we are launching a new series this fall called Norton Shorts, which has leading scholars writing eye-opening books that deliver fresh perspectives in under 200 pages. Wild Girls by Taya Miles talks about important women in history from many different backgrounds who found self-understanding in the natural world and became women who changed America. So this is good for your history and biography fans. And Against Techno-Ableism by Ashley Shue is an Own Voices manifesto that argues that disabled people are the experts when it comes to what they need from technology. She is an associate professor of science, technology, and society at Virginia Tech and specializes in disability studies and technology ethics. She urges us to look closely at how we all think about disability technologies and learn to envision disabilities not as liabilities, but as skill sets enabling all of us to navigate a challenging world.
All right, and I'm going to start mine with The Wren, the new novel from the great Irish novelist Anne Enright. She is a Booker Prize winner. She was Ireland's very first fiction laureate, one of Ireland's greatest novelists, and certainly one of the world's great novelists. This novel, one of the main characters is a poet who is largely absent from the book, but he's crucial because he is the husband, father, and grandfather of the other 3 main characters who have to deal with the legacy of this brilliant poet who wasn't quite so brilliant in his personal relationships. Told from the point of view of the wife, the daughter, and the granddaughter in their own voices, it's just stunning. And then we have the great Jill Lepore. You know her from The New Yorker. She's a Harvard professor of history. She did These Truths for Norton a few years ago, which was a 900-page history of the United States. She can seemingly do everything, and this is a collection of her essays from her time at The New Yorker, which I think she joined in 2005. We know her for being brilliant and erudite and a great academic, but the essays here, while some of them are political and some of them are historical, get a lot more personal than anything you've read from Jill Lepore before, dealing with her aging parents, her marriage, her children. It's Jill Lepore, and anything she writes is amazing. This is 600 pages of amazing. And then Crossings by Ben Goldfarb. Ben had a book from Chelsea Green a few years ago called Eager about beavers. This is a book about road ecology, which is ecologists who try to figure out how to change our highways and roadways in a way that benefits wildlife. Wildlife is affected by roadways in way more ways than we know. You know, you think of roadkill, but it goes far beyond that. Migration routes are cut off by roads. Animals' habitats are penned in by highway systems. And this book takes us all over the world, United States, Australia, Denmark, UK, and looks at the obvious animals, you know, the deer and things like that. But, you know, there's a whole chapter here on salmon and how salmon are affected by roads. There's a whole chapter on these tiny frogs in Denmark. It's just utterly fascinating. And it's one of those books that makes you realize that when an author is passionate about his subject, it comes through in the reading.
Now, MCU, The Reign of Marvel Studios, is the unauthorized behind-the-scenes story of the stunning rise and suddenly uncertain reign of the most transformative cultural phenomenon of our time, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So how did they become the dominant player, both in Hollywood and in global pop culture? Joanna Robinson, Dave Gonzalez, and Gavin Edwards draw on more than 100 interviews with actors, producers, directors, and writers to present the definitive chronicle of Marvel Studios, all the way up to the shocking departures of multiple Marvel executives in 2023. Dishy and authoritative, MCU is the first book to tell the Marvel Studios story in full, while giving us an essential account of American mass culture. Fierce Ambition is a spirited portrait of 20th century war correspondent Maggie Higgins and her tenacious fight to the top in a male-dominated profession. A longtime reporter for the New York Herald Tribune, she first catapulted to fame with her dramatic account of the liberation of Dachau at the end of World War II. Her notoriety soared during the Cold War, and her daring dispatches from Korea garnered a Pulitzer Prize for foreign correspondence, the first granted to a woman for frontline reporting. Drawing on new and extensive research, including never-before-published correspondence and interviews with Maggie's colleagues, lovers, soldiers, and generals who knew her in the field, journalist and historian Janet Conant restores Maggie's rightful place in history as a woman who paved the way for a next generation of journalists and one of the greatest war correspondents of her time. In The Race to Be Myself, world champion runner Caster Semenya offers an empowering account of her extraordinary life and career and her trailblazing battle to compete on her own terms. Caster Semenya is one of the greatest athletes ever to run the 800-meter. She went undefeated for almost 4 years, winning 2 Olympic gold medals and 3 World Athletics Championships, and set and broke numerous records. However, her life and career were devastated by accusations that, because she was born with naturally elevated levels of testosterone, she was not a woman and should not compete against other women. Her predicament surfaced a still raging firestorm over our understanding of gender and of how gender plays out in sports, as well as our expectations of female athletes. The Race to Be Myself tells the coming-of-age story of an iconic athlete, of Semenya's dramatic journey from a gifted and self-trained novice to the pinnacle of her sport, and takes readers behind the scenes of her inspiring battle to run in the body that she was born with.
And next up we have the new novel from J.M. Coetzee, The Pole. This is the first novel we've published by J.M. Coetzee, and the first time in Norton's 100-year history that we've published a new novel by a living Nobel laureate. Best known for Disgrace, which was published in the 90s, and Waiting for the Barbarians, and The Life of Michael Kay. This is really a return to form for Coetzee. It's the story of a traveling musician who's playing a symphonic concert in Barcelona. He's a pianist. And the woman who is a patron of the arts in Barcelona who helped arrange the concert, he becomes enamored with her. And she, at first, is dismissive of him, but over the course of the book, she ends up being involved with him in ways she did not expect. And she is married. And their relationship is really kind of amazing and a little disturbing, but also kind of beautiful. Coetzee, if you've ever read him, he can do more in under 200 pages than most writers can do in 400 pages. So this will be a book to talk about. And then another big author, Mary Beard, SPQR, which we published 6 or 7 years ago, has done extraordinarily well, selling, I think, almost 500,000 copies. This is her next and probably last big Roman history book. And SPQR was all about the common people of the Roman Empire, and this is the opposite. This is a book about the emperors, who they were, both personally and politically. The people who were close to them, their wives, their children, their closest confidants. I actually thought this was even better than SPQR, and that's really saying something because that was an amazing book. The Liberators from Tin House. E.J. Koh, her last book with us was a debut memoir called The Magical Language of Others, which was an amazing, amazing book and got wonderful reviews. This is her debut novel, and it is about a couple who were married through an arranged marriage, who during the military dictatorship in South Korea end up fleeing to California to start a life with their infant daughter. And the story goes back and forth between California and the history of Korea that brought them up to this point. Think of books like Pachinko or some of the Lisa C. novels as good comps for this. It's all about the characters and the history. And then from Mysterious Press, we have a Christmas novella from Lisa Unger. If you don't know, Lisa Unger will be the guest editor of Houghton Mifflin Harcourt's Best American Mystery and Suspense Stories this year, so her profile should be nice and high. And unlike a lot of authors and publishers who publish mystery novellas for the holiday season, this is not the least bit cute or cozy. This is a mystery novella with teeth about a small-town librarian right around Christmas time who is the sole survivor of a horrific attack that left 2 women dead, including her best friend, and 2 other women missing ever since. The culprit is behind bars, at least she's pretty sure, and she hopes so because he's behind bars based on her testimony. But when a blogger comes to town to reinvestigate the case, thinking that the wrong person has been imprisoned, she gets very nervous. And then right on cue, another woman disappears. So, great book.
And Hazardous Spirits is also coming from Tin House Books. So in 1920s Edinburgh, Evelyn Hazard is a young, middle-class housewife living the life she's always expected until her husband Robert upends everything with a startling announcement. He can communicate with the dead. And The Waters. This is the new novel by Bonnie Jo Campbell, author of Once Upon a River, which was recently made into an indie movie. This is set in small-town western Michigan. Bonnie described it to us as wild women living in a swamp. So The Waters follows 11-year-old Dorothy, nicknamed Donkey, who spends her days searching for truths in the lush landscape and in her math books, waiting for her wayward mother and longing for a father, unaware that family secrets, passionate love, and violent men will flood through the swamp and upend her idyllic childhood. Bonnie will be at the Library Reads Your Morning is Booked panel on Monday morning at 8:30 a.m. in 175 AB. So we hope to see you there. And now we're going to switch over to our books for children and teens from Norton Young Readers, Thames and Hudson, Tilbury House, and Abbeville. And we have samples of some of these over in our booth at 3416 if you want to come and flip through them. Virginia Wouldn't Slow Down is an illustrated biography of Virginia Apgar, the doctor who developed the test for evaluating newborn health that's used worldwide every day. Born at the turn of the 20th century, Virginia Apgar became the second board-certified female anesthesiologist in the United States. The simple 5-step test she created has become the standard and continues to impact countless newborn babies' lives today. The back matter includes more information on the impact of the APGAR test, a timeline, and some photos of Dr. APGAR. Carrie Pearson's jaunty storytelling and Nancy Carpenter's playful illustrations capture the energy and independence of a woman who didn't slow down for anything and changed newborn care forever. And Thank a Farmer. This is really lovely. This celebrates the people and the work that put food on our tables. Across wheat fields and city rooftop gardens, mushroom beds and maple forests, Thank a Farmer traces the food and clothing that a family uses back to the people who harvested and created them. The book gently emphasizes the importance of agriculture in our day-to-day lives and reminds readers to give thanks to farm workers around the world. And Katie Yamasaki has done a lot of work with incarcerated people and their families, and this story was inspired by some of the art projects that she has done with incarcerated mothers and their children. In Place Hand Here, a hand painted on the wall of a building becomes a place for members of the community to remember their distant or lost loved ones. You see people from many walks of life and their memories, and follow the story of the boy who painted the hand on the wall, inspired by a letter from his mother. While he waits for her to come home, the hand is there to connect them to each other and remind them that they are not alone. This book makes me cry, and this is for anyone who might be missing a loved one. Back to you.
All right, and next up from Norton Young Readers is a nonfiction kids nature book called Listen to the Birds. There's a lot of books on birds, obviously, and a lot of books on birds for kids, but this is interesting because it's largely a book on bird song, which, as you can imagine, is a difficult thing to do in a book. It's structured as a series of walks through nature. It focuses on 40 common birds. There's about 3 to 4 on each 2-page spread. And the author gives you easy-to-remember mnemonics to break down how the bird sounds so that you can imitate the bird. But even that is difficult. So the book has an app that you can download for free. And when you scan each page, you'll get an image of the bird in motion, along with a recording of the bird song of that particular bird. And then to go along with the author's mnemonics, it makes it much easier for kids to remember how to make the sounds of the birds. And the illustrations are just gorgeous. All right, next up in Dan Gutman's wonderful biography series for young readers. This is a series that works really well for reluctant readers because these books are not only full of information, they are also very funny. He has done Teddy Roosevelt and Lucille Ball and all sorts, Amelia Earhart, and here he covers the Beatles. And to give you an idea, you get all of the real historical information that any other book would give you. But this one also explains, and these are true, that John Lennon's mother called him stinky because of how often he farted. That Paul McCartney liked to play guitar in the bathroom. And that Ringo Starr's mother believed that he was possessed by witches. So all of these kinds of fun and silly and sometimes gross facts are interspersed with the traditional facts that you would find in a regular kid's biography. Narrated by the brother and sister pair, Page and Turner. These have become really a big hit with librarians and teachers, especially for reluctant readers. And one of my favorite new books from Norton Young Readers, White House Clubhouse. This is Sean O'Brien, who has been a speechwriter for a number of years, now teaches speechwriting at Georgetown. He was the Biden's speechwriter during Joe Biden's vice presidency. And this is the perfect series for kids who love the Magic Treehouse to graduate into. Magic Treehouse, of course, are sort of advanced early readers. This is solidly middle grade, 250 plus pages, much more sophisticated, but still that same kind of magical element to it. The two main characters are the daughters of the new president, who's a Latina woman, and they're very smart, precocious, and adventurous young girls, and as excited as they are for their mom to be president, they're kind of bummed that they're stuck in this big White House. And so they start exploring the house. There's a lot more to this story, but they find a secret door that leads to White Houses of the past. And they end up in Teddy Roosevelt's White House. They meet his youngest kids, and they find out they can't get back to the present until they help Teddy Roosevelt's kids help Teddy solve a problem. So you can see the similarities, and you can also see where this series will go. In future books, we'll go back to different White Houses and learn different historical facts.
Yeah, and Sean is going to be on a magnificent middle grade panel at the Pop Top stage today at 3:30, and he will be signing ARCs there. And then Elizabeth Irene Beatty's first book published in the USA, Crossing the Stream, received an honor from the Children's Africana Book Awards. Flying Up the Mountain is the sequel, and it follows Otto and two friends to the bird sanctuary that his father helped design. When the kids arrive at the sanctuary with other children from across West Africa, they are split into teams and given missions to help broaden their knowledge of nature. But then the adults on the preserve start behaving erratically, and Otto suspects foul play. When the trio uncovers a sinister plot to exploit the sanctuary, Otto and his friends must work together to protect it and his father's legacy. In the Upside Down Book of Sloths, Elizabeth Shreve uncovers the evolutionary history of sloths and how they became the beloved and unique creatures of today. She compares the 6 modern species, like the pygmy sloth and the brown-throated sloth, with their prehistoric counterparts, such as Paramylodon, which had armor-like skin and walked on the sides of its feet, and Megatherium, which could weigh up to 8,000 pounds. She reveals how modern sloths have adapted to hang upside down, how they learn to swim, and all sorts of other interesting facts. And now we have a couple titles from Tilbury House. The Great Banned Books Bake Sale by Aya Khalil was inspired by her previous book, The Arabic Quilt, being challenged in a school district in Pennsylvania. The young girl from the previous book, Kanzi, feels like she fits in at school now, until she gets to the library and sees that the whole shelf of diverse books has been removed. She and the other kids strategize with their teacher on what to do, and they decide to have a bake sale and a protest to raise awareness. Kanzi reads a poem about how the loss of the books makes her feel, and ultimately the books are brought back to the library. So as you can see, this is very timely and unfortunately has become even more widespread issue since the book was first conceived.
All right, and also from Tilbury House, a new fascinating nonfiction picture book called So Sister, the untold story of Jean Wright and NASA's seamstresses. When we think of NASA and the space program and the space shuttles, we think of scientists and technology and all that kind of thing. But few people know that the space shuttles were actually enshrouded in a 2-inch thick quilt that protected the astronauts from radiation, and that this quilt was sewn on to the space shuttles by seamstresses. Jean Wright, the subject of the book, was 18 years old when she was given the opportunity of a lifetime. She literally grew up loving to sew and knit and crochet, and she was a big lover of space and astronomy. And she got the chance to work for NASA in this extremely important endeavor to shroud the space shuttles in quilts to keep the astronauts safe. Fascinating story that few people, adults or kids, know about. And then another nonfiction book for kids from Tilbury House, The Thing to Remember About Stargazing. This takes us through all different communities, all different situations, urban, rural, etc., to talk about what are the best things to remember about stargazing. And it shows you people stargazing on a moonless night, on a full moon night, on a night that's kind of cloudy, on a night that's clear, on a night that's raining. And it keeps telling you all the things to remember about stargazing, but in the end, of course, the one thing, the most important thing to remember about stargazing is to do it. And it shows you how the stars help us connect with the natural world. And lots of back matter about the constellations and things like that. And finally, from Thames and Hudson Kids Books, the second in a new series that started with Do Bears Poop in the Woods? This is Do Penguins Like the Cold? I love these books because the interiors are very busy in the best possible way with wonderful illustrations and lots of text bubbles, just perfect for a certain kind of kid. And this covers 18 species of penguin, and of course, penguins in Antarctica, but penguins in I think there's like at least a dozen different countries. South America, of course, New Zealand, Chile, Argentina, the Galapagos Islands. Why don't they fly? How good are they at diving and hunting fish? All of this is explained through both the illustrations and the incredible text.
And now also from Timms and Hudson, since graphic novels and comics are so popular, you'll probably have some teens who are interested in making their own. How to Draw a Graphic Novel is structured as a series of short courses that combine technical advice with creative inspiration. Written by a graphic novel producer, the book includes lessons in how to construct a narrative, develop characters, and design settings, as well as the basics of printing, binding, and digital file setup. The book also includes biographies of creators, interviews, and a recommended reading list. And then finally, for your sports-loving kids, Abbeville Press has expanded their series of sports titles beyond soccer and into baseball, football, and basketball. Each book features profiles of famous players along with tons of photos and stats, and they keep branching out into more sports, and they told us next year for the Olympics they're going to do gymnastics and figure skating, which I am excited about. So thank you all so much for listening. We don't have very many ARCs left in the booth, but I do have a lot of books for you to look at. So please come and see us at booth 3416, and thanks for coming today.
Thank you.